Okay, so welcome everyone to this session as part of Digital Leaders Week, titled Improving Health Outcomes with More Efficient Referrals. My name is Iona Murray, I work for SICCAR, and I will be taking you through today's session. So without further ado, I will start. And yes, just to let you know that this session will be recorded so we can share it afterwards. So what we'll be covering today, I'll start off by just talking a bit about the problem with referrals between the health and social care and the third sector, and why there's so much going on in this space, in the referral space. I'll then move on to just briefly explain the Open Referral UK standard, what it is, and the sort of components to it. Then specifically go and show you and chat a bit about the Open Referrals project that SICCAR has been working on this year and been part of with CAST. And I hope, I'll be able to show you a bit of a demonstration about what we produced. And then sort of moving on from just referrals, looking at the actual wider opportunity for more collaboration between the health and social care sector and the third sector. And then I'll just briefly talk about the SICCAR platform as a sort of infrastructure to enable this, and then how to get started. And we will have time for questions at the end, so please feel free to put them in the chat, and I'm sure my colleague will field them to me at the end. So the problem. Nearly 20 million people in the UK volunteer regularly. Before I was involved in this work, that was I never knew just the amount of people that volunteer in the UK. So that was a really, really strong number. And especially as we come out of the pandemic and we're recovering from the pandemic, volunteers will be crucial in further support. And on top of this, many health problems are better treated at home. So many patient care scenarios are actually, go further than just hospital, and sort of diet, mobility issues and that sort of thing are better treated in the comfort of people's home. And this community support is widely treated by these volunteers and by the third sector. And in fact, it's crucial that the third sector are involved in this community support. And we want to encourage the use of these independent voluntary sector services to provide this community support to reduce the strain on the public sector, on the health and social care sector. I mean, we all know that the NHS is under increasing pressure, obviously given the circumstances especially. So how do we utilise these 20 million odd volunteers in the UK? And that starts with, how do we better integrate the third sector with health and social care? When you look at simply the issue of referrals between health and social care and the third sector, we found there was a lot of issues in terms of social prescribers from the health and social care sector, finding the right services for the patient, so finding the most relevant, most appropriate services. And that has a lot to do with the not knowing the availability of that service, or not knowing the location of that service, and it comes down to just we're not using the same, people are describing the services differently. The different organisations, different voluntary organisations are describing their services differently. And this leads to delays from people being able to leave hospital, from being discharged from hospital, and just general inefficiencies, and therefore not as good patient care. So the first step that we look to address is this issue to do with referrals between health and social care and the third sector. And that brings me to Open Referral UK. So what is it? So some of you may have been on the Open Referral launch event on Monday as part of the Digital Leaders Week. If you didn't look at it, I would really advise that you do see the on-demand content. It was really, really useful in just explaining what the actual standard is. I'll just quickly recap that the Open Referral standard is a sort of is a globally recognised standard for the management of referral services data. So it's a recommended data framework, and there's specifically one for the UK which expands on the global framework. So it starts with the organisation, the service, and all these relevant service details that you can see. One of the key enablers of this standard is the element of taxonomy, or this standard set of terms, which kind of addresses that issue that I alluded to earlier around the searching and finding of relevant third sector services or relevant community services. Because if we provide a standard set of terms that everyone is describing their services the right way or the same way, then these services can be found much more easier, much more simpler, and the services that are found are hopefully more relevant and more accurate for the patient. So that brings me to the Open Referrals project. So SICCAR was involved with CAST, who are part of Catalyst UK. CAST themselves are a charity, and they help other charities with their sort of digital transformation journey. And so they were pioneering this Open Referrals project implementation for the third sector. And prior to the commencement of the project, CAST found that a lot of these charitable services, all these 20 million volunteers and also charitable employees, the services they were offering weren't being utilised. And a lot of that was to do with no one really knew what they did. So the social prescribers were a bit confused with what they did because everyone was describing their services differently. Or in fact, they were matched with the wrong referrals. So potentially, if your service was not out of hours and you were matched with a patient who needed out of hour services or locality, or actually just the wrong service entirely. As part of our research at the start of this project, we found that there were a lot of local efforts, so a lot of local service directories of services, of community services, but that leads to a lot of overlap in terms of service directories and actually inconsistencies, because charities have to kind of keep up to date all the different directories, and it was, you know, for a lot of these charities, they're too small to do so. And so that means there's a lot of inconsistencies with the service information and just in general data. So CAST and indeed SICCAR set out to produce a platform for UK-wide use for more efficient searching of voluntary sector services. And with all charities and all charitable referrals being done on one platform, we can start to sort of gather data about the numbers of referrals being made to the third sector. And actually that goes a long way in demonstrating third sector effectiveness. So this brings me quite nicely to the actual platform that we produced. And if everything goes to plan, I'm assuming that you can all still see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So of course, if you were an organisation that offered a service yourself, you could create an account as in an organisation and then create your service yourself. But today, I just want to sort of specifically show you the searching element of the platform. So I'm signing in as a demo social prescriber. And here is the alpha platform. So as I say, you can add an organisation, or if your organisation already existed, you could request association with an organisation. But here I want to just quickly go to the playlist section of the platform. You might recognise the word playlist from sort of, if you use Spotify or something like that, that's where we got it from. But we're actually currently going through a lot of user research and user testing of this platform to potentially, you know, decide on a better name for that. But basically, your playlist is your your saved searches. So they may be your most commonly used services or ones that you want to refer back to, that sort of thing. So here you can see, you can search by postcode and then the distance in miles. But more specifically, and in regards to the standard, the Open Referral standard that we were talking about today, you can start to search by keywords, you know, housing, that sort of thing, which uses a lot of that standard taxonomy that the standard recommends. And in fact, you can start to look at the categories as well. You can search by category, which again come from the standards. So I'll click here, Edinburgh Elderly Transport. Here is what a charity service looks like. You can see here the service provided by the organisation and the address of that organisation, the other services that the organisation provides, the availability and the location of the service, which is quite nicely shown on the map here. Now, if I look at another example, again, I go on People and Society, Refuge Centre, for example, I just want to note here that map is not shown for security purposes. So this is a refuge centre, and if it was the case, if it was a requirement that potentially you wouldn't want to show your location of your service because it's sensitive, then the platform supports that, and then it would only be shown to the referrer. So this is addressing that issue around how to better search for and find relevant voluntary sector and other sectors. But actually, if we go a step further and we look at referrals being the first stage, so beyond just searching for and finding better support services, what if we can not only streamline the referral bit of it, but actually streamline the delivery of that support services, of that community service? It would mean that the services provided by the voluntary sector, which are not often well integrated with the public sector in terms of the IT domains, can be joined up for better patient outcomes. So by improving the referral process, social prescribers can more easily, quickly refer patients to an independent service. This reduces the delay of discharge for patients from hospital, because we are assured that they are getting the right support in the community, and that takes the strain off the NHS and increases patient well-being, because I'm sure they would want to get home sooner rather than later. But after this part of the journey, many of these care providers work with limited patient data. There's not yet a mechanism or indeed a platform for the health and social care organisations to share patient data with the third sector, or share relevant patient data with the third sector, which can impact the care provided. So for example, if your patient was getting treatment in hospital that was relevant to the treatment they were getting at home, you know, the volunteer or that charitable organisation providing the community support should know about the care that they had already received to make better care decisions themselves. And we know that if the care providers are armed with this relevant data, they can make better care decisions. So then what if we could safely and securely share data between health and social care and the third sector? And this brings me on to a nice case study, and this is exactly what SICCAR did with charity Food Train, who are based up here in Scotland. So Food Train support the elderly with a variety of different services, including their meal plan support service, which addresses the growing issue of malnutrition in the UK, specifically malnutrition in the elderly. So if you see from the nice Venn diagram on the screen, you'll see the different sectors involved in this patient care scenario, and indeed the different IT domains. And you'll see that nice little intersection in the middle being the data that relates to all three parties and should be shared safely for the best patient outcomes. So with that, I will quickly show you a video which summarises this case study well.
Well over 1 million people aged over 65 are at risk or suffering from malnutrition in the UK. At the last estimate, the cost to the NHS was around £20 billion per annum. This condition cannot be fully treated in hospital, and so is an ideal opportunity to arrange support services from the voluntary sector on discharge from hospital. But making this arrangement is not currently straightforward. A trust platform is required to allow citizens to share sensitive information with health, statutory care and voluntary sector providers. Take the example of malnutrition sufferer Mary and her dietitian Julie, who has used the Malnutrition Universal Screening Tool Score, MUST score, to diagnose Mary's condition. Before discharge from hospital, Julie finds a certified voluntary sector service provider for Mary. She works with Mary to complete the necessary application form and store her information in a safe and secure digital wallet, which allows the service to be initiated. Mary's son takes control of her wallet and shares data with those who need it. FoodTrain helps Mary eat well at home and monitors her condition, including her MUST score. They raise a flag when her condition deteriorates. Mary is readmitted to hospital and her MUST score data is visible to her doctors. Mary is diagnosed with celiac disease and, when discharged, this is added to her wallet so that FoodTrain is made aware. SICCAR delivers safe and secure data sharing, digitally signed by trusted parties, and the patient stays in control of their own data. The availability of better data can reduce delay and risk of further healthcare treatment, and SICCAR enables effective collaboration between the health and voluntary sectors.
So that's just a nice case study which showcases the sort of art of the possible in terms of better data sharing between the health and social care sectors and the third sector. But of course, to enable this, the whole process, the whole patient journey needs better technological infrastructure. And this is where the SICCAR platform comes in. So the SICCAR platform provides this data infrastructure to enable these data-driven services. So many of you may be familiar with distributed ledger technology, or better known as blockchain, which provides shared data between all different stakeholders or different parties in a network. And SICCAR is built with these principles in mind. So our platform enables creation of a trusted network for data sharing, putting the patient first. Data is shared based on consent from the individuals, and each party only sees the bits of information they need to. So this, by sharing the minimal amount of data needed, this reduces the overall amount of data exposure, decreasing risk for all the parties on the network. We create something that's called a single source of truth, a shared register. But these shared registers are safe and secure and can enable data-driven patient care across a wide range of different healthcare scenarios. So in layman's terms, it means that for the health and social care organisations, and indeed the charities, they can share trusted data, trusted because they know where the data comes from, with other organisations out with the public sector, using this single source of truth that we talked about. And that's because there's no duplicate records. There's only one version of the data, so it's always kept up to date. And it also means that these organisations have fully traceable and transparent data sharing processes, which helps with auditing and demonstrating compliance. If we keep it all digital and we eradicate the need for paper, it means that, that when it comes to auditing and demonstrating compliance, it's much simpler. And all organisations on the network benefit from the security principles of DLT, distributed ledger, including encryption and limited impact of data breaches. As I said prior, by sharing the minimum data needed at each step to each organisation, it reduces the potential for data breach. And not only this, but the inherent security principles of distributed ledger technology makes it almost impossible to hack. And so for the patients, it means that they can stay in control of their own information. The food train example shows that patients are staying in control via wallet of their own information, and they can see which organisations have access to it, and they can give permission to the organisations that need it to see their data, or indeed a proxy can. And therefore they avoid delayed discharge from hospitals, and in the end receive better care decisions due to better data availability and these data-driven decisions. So one of the outcomes of this session was to explore how you can actually get started with open referrals today. And there's a lot going on in this space, open referrals in the UK. And again, I recommend you go and have a look at the session from Monday, the Open Referral launch event. It talks about just the amount of projects going on in the UK already. So it's a really, really good time to start to explore and potentially adopt the standard in your own organisation. And building off the food train example, the first thing that I recommend you actually do is map out the stakeholders or the organisations in your network and see how just the different interactions and the number of organisations in your referral network. And these organisations, these are the organisations that you may want to share data with in the future. If you look at the example on screen, you can see just the amount of organisations involved in the food train case study in reference to malnutrition. You can then start to identify and monitor those organisations that receive and make referrals, and that then allows you to potentially look at where you can start. And of course, with any sort of digital transformation, it can be incremental steps, and you can start slowly in terms of maybe you just want to focus on one referral journey or focus on a few parties at first, and then scale up in regards to implementing the standard. And that brings me to, if you are looking to adopt the standard in your own organisation, to get in touch with SICCAR or indeed myself, and my contacts are on the screen, and we can really help you start to explore and implement the standard for more efficient referrals between organisations for better patient outcomes. So with that, I say thank you, and I'm finished, and welcome any questions you may have.